So we are on to the third match now. I start things off by inking a Huey and paying 1 to play out a Minnie Mouse. Tell him to remember to draw for turn. He inks a Webby Vanderquack and passes the turn. I ink a Flounder, pay 2 to play out a Hey Hey and pass the turn. He inks a Voyage and for 2 plays out a Scrooge McDuck. I decide to ink my own Webby Vanderquack and pay 3 for an Agrabah. And then I quest for 1 with my Minnie Mouse. Pass the turn. He inks a Moana. And then pays 3 for a Kakamora. Let me go back down to 0 lore. He then quests for 1 with his Scrooge McDuck. I get 2 from Agrabah. I then pay 3 for a second Agrabah. And decide to ink Maui's Fishhook and pay 1 to move Hey Hey to Agrabah, which makes a lower. And then I quest for 1, going to 3 with my Minnie Mouse. He decides to ink a Vault Door. He then plays 3 for a Maui and takes out my mini with his Kakamora and quests for 1 with his Scrooge McDuck, Uncle Moneybags. Passes the turn. I gain 4 for my Agrabah, taking me to 7. I then pay 1 to move Hey Hey to my other location, making him lose 4, taking him back down to 0. I then pay 2 for a Yellow Duck and pay 1 to move her to Agrabah for no reason. I then swing my Hey Hey in Scrooge McDuck and pass turn. Inks and plays a Dragonfire on my Yellow Duck. He then hits his Maui into my Agrabah, getting rid of one of my locations. That's the turn. I ready my Hey Hey, gain 2 from Agrabah. I pay, yes I do, I pay 4 for Grandma Tala. Drawing 2 cards, putting 1 in my hand and 1 back on the bottom of my deck. I then decide to take out his Maui with my Hey Hey, sending them both to the discard pile. Decide not to ink and pass the turn. And I believe that this is about the time where we had issue about Sumerian Talisman. And yes, so he does play for 3 out the Sumerian Talisman, and then for 3 out Peter Pan, and passes his turn. I gain 2 from Agrabah, taking me to 11. Then pay 3 for my own Sumerian Talisman. I then ink a Cogsworth Talking Clock. I then quest for 1 with my Grandma Tala, taking me to 12. For 3, he plays out a Webby Vanderquack and a second Sumerian Talisman. He then quests for 2 with his Peter Pan. I gain 2 from Agrabah, taking me to 14. I then pay 3 for Kakamora, making him lose a lore, down to 1. I then take out his Peter Pan with my Grandma Tala, doing 1 damage to Grandma Tala. And pass the turn back to Chris. For 3, he plays a second Webby Vanderquack. He then takes out my Grandma, which does not banish his character, so he does not get to draw off his Sumerian Talisman, is what he actually thought he got to do later on in match. I then take out his Webby Vanderquack with my Kakamora, drawing 1 off the Sumerian Talisman. I then pay 2 for a Della Duck. And this is where I think he says I should have been drawing off the Sumerian Talisman, and I said no, you played it right. I go through my thing and tell him, hey, the Grandma Tala, you didn't take it out. I finished off your character and banished my own character, which made me draw. He says, no, I should have got it off Bubby. I said no, because you did not banish your own character. So I was right about this play. So we continue playing. After a little debate, he then plays for 4 out a Louis, and then he quests for 1 with his Webby Vanderquack, taking him to 2, and that's the end of the first game. So he starts off by inking and paying 1 for a Minnie Mouse. I ink a Dewey and pay 1 for my own Minnie Mouse and pass the turn back to Chris. He then inks a Voyage and pays 2 for a Duke Weaselton and quests for 1 with his Minnie Mouse. I ink a Flintheart Gloomgold, and for 2, pay out a Della Duck. I then quest for 1 with my Minnie Mouse, pass the turn back to Chris. He inks a Webby Vanderquack, and for 3, plays a Kakamora, making me score. He then quests for 3 with his Minnie Mouse and his Duke Wesselton. I ink Scrooge McDuck, Uncle Moneybag. For 3, I play out Maui. I then swing my Della Duck into his Duke and quest for 1 with my Minnie. Pass the turn back. He then, for 3, decides to play Agrabah. to me just eating. He decides to take out my Duck with Kakamora, and then quest for 1 with Mini, taking him to 5. Off turn, ready for characters. Throw my Maui into his Agrabah. To the discard, as I do not want him to be Lore Temple gaining every turn. I then pay 1 for Montanui and pay 1 to move Maui to Montanui. Then ink a Dewey and quest for 1 with my Minnie Mouse and pass a turn back. He inks a Maid Marian and for 1 plays out a Montanui, and then for 2 plays out a Duck. Then a quest for 1 with his Mini. Passes the turn. A 3 for a Kakamora, moves Lure, sending him down to 5. I then pay 1 to move Kakamora to Montanui, and take out his Montanui with my Maui, and take out his Minnie Mouse with my Kakamora, and then I said, oh shit, I forgot it's drying, so sorry. And then ink a Pluto, quest for 1 with Mini, and pass the turn. For 3, he plays out a Dewey. Takes out my Minnie Mouse with his Duck, doing 1 damage to his Duck. Then quests for 1 with his Minnie Mouse. A 1 from my Montanui. I then pay 2 for a Duke Weaselton and pay 1 to move him to Montanui. I then swing my Maui at Duck. It goes into the Inkwell Exerted when it's banished. Then pay 2 for a Duck. I swing my Kakamora, or quest for 1 with my Kakamora. He then for 4 plays out a Louie. Thinks a minute about his line of play that he wants to take. Then decides to quest for 2 with Dewey, giving support to his Minnie Mouse. Taking out my Kakamora, bringing it to the Inkwell, which also banishes Minnie Mouse. Passes the turn back to me. I gain another 1 from Montanui, taking me to 6. I throw my Duck into his Dewey, doing 2 damage to my Duck. I then pay 1 to move Duck to Nui. For protected, because she's done her job, she can go to the Inkwell now. Then I quest for 2 with the Duke Weaselton, and Dragonfire his Louie and pass the turn back. He decides to pay 4 for a Moana. Passes back to me. Get ready my ink characters. Draw. I pay 4 for a Grammatala. The top 2 cards, putting 1 in my hand, 1 on the bottom of the deck. I then pay 2 for a Hey. Pay 1 to move him to Montanui, who's a lure. I then quest for 2 with my Duke Wilson. Pass the turn. I believe there I may have misplayed. That's okay. He decides to pay 3 for a Maui. Then hits his Moana into my Della Duck, which actually shouldn't have been able to happen, as I realize now, because she was not exerted. Joe does 3 damage to his Moana, so I let it happen. So that's my misplay, as well as his. Ready my characters and my ink. Gain 1 from Montanui. Then pay 3 for a Webby Vanderquack. I pay 1 to move Grandma Tala to Montanui and 1 to move Webby to Montanui. Once you have a whole bunch of characters at a location, it is quite difficult to move Webby off to the side. And then I quest for 4 with my Grandma, my Duke, and my Hey, I believe. Now at 14. He pays 4 for a Flintheart Gloomgold, doing 5 damage to Montanui to get it off the board, as he's starting to realize how much power I'm starting to gain off that. He then takes out my Duke Weaselton with his Moana, sending them both to the discard, and passes the turn. I then pay 3 for an Agrabah to keep my tempo going, get rid of my characters. Then pay 1 to move Hey to Agrabah to make Chris lose a lure. I then quest for 2, 3 with all my characters, taking me to 17. Back to him, he pays 2 for a Cogsworth Talking Clock and 2 for a Della Duck, emptying his hand. Takes a second here to think about his line of play. Probably takes more time than was needed, but that's okay. All in good fun. He decides to take out my Grandma Tala with his Flintheart Gloomgold, doing 3 damage to itself, and passes the turn. Ready my characters and draw. Oops. I pay 3 for a Maui's Fishhook, and then 5 for a Scrooge McDuck. I then decide to quest for 2, taking me to 19, as I know that I should just quest away now. He then plays a Della Duck for 2. Takes out my Hey with his Maui. he decides to take out my Webby Vandercrack with both Cogsworth and Flint Heart Loongold. Then I quest for 1, and that's the end of game 2. On to the 4th round.